Oh hi! Today I'll be showing you how to make my super easy and delicious high protein pizza dough. This dough can make one 16-inch diameter pizza or a 10 and 12-inch diameter pizza because that's how math works. This macro magic is brought to us by Vital Wheat Gluten, which is an incredibly cheap source of protein. We're using enough Vital Wheat Gluten that we end up with a good amount of protein, but not so much that we end up with a chewy and rubbery dough. We're going to be using 00 flour, which gives it a more light and airy crust, but if you don't have this or just want a cheaper option, feel free to sub this with bread flour or all-purpose flour. I like to use active yeast because it's shelf-stable, easy to use, and fast-acting. First up, we're going to be weighing our flours. Normally, I'm like, preheat your oven, but this is going to take a while, so don't do that. For this dough, we're using 150 grams of all-purpose flour, 120 grams of 00 flour, and 90 grams of Vital Wheat Gluten. I'm American, so I really like my measuring cups as much as the next person, and normally I won't tell you to weigh stuff, but you definitely need to weigh these. Flours can be really dense, so sometimes if you're using just a measuring cup, you can end up with a lot more flour than you think, and then the dough texture is going to be off. We're also adding 2 teaspoons of salt, which helps with the flavor and the structure of the dough. Next, we are whisking the shit out of our dry ingredients. Since we are using 3 types of flour, whisking is really important to ensure that we have a homogeneous mixture. Now, you don't have to proof your instant active yeast, but I ruined dough once with bad yeast, so I like to check and make sure that it's going to work before I add it to the flour. We're using 1.5 cups of warm water around 115 degrees Fahrenheit or 46 degrees Celsius. It should be about the same temperature as the hottest water your sink can put out unless you've really jacked the temperature up on your water heater. Add in 1.5 tablespoons of sugar and your packet of instant yeast. We're going to cover this bowl with a kitchen towel, wait about 5 minutes, and when we come back, we should know whether or not the yeast is viable and active. It should look like this if your yeast is good. It's foamy, it's bubbly, and the yeast are ready to go to work for you. Next, we're going to add our yeasty water to our flours 3, and then we're going to stir everything together until it becomes a dough. It can take a while to work all of the flour into the water, but don't give up on it and don't add more water just yet. Just keep stirring and mixing until you end up with a dough. You should be able to tell if the dough is dry, if it looks drier than what I'm about to show you. If your dough is dry, incorporate a small amount of water until it looks right. And on the other hand, if it looks wetter than the dough I'm showing you, if it doesn't form a ball, or if the dough is sloppy and goopy, then you're going to want to add a small amount of flour until it looks like the dough I show. Then form a ball with the dough and lightly coat the dough and the bowl with olive oil. This prevents the dough from sticking to the bowl and also helps maintain moisture in the dough. You're going to cover the bowl and allow the dough to rest for 2 hours in a warmish part of your house. I like to cover mine with either cling wrap or press and seal first to keep the moisture in, and then I add a couple of towels on top to keep some of the warmth in. If you're enjoying this video and would like to see more like it, be sure to like and subscribe. I would strongly recommend checking your dough at the 1 hour mark just to make sure that it's getting bigger. At the 2 hour mark, your dough should look something similar to this. Now we're going to touch the dough. You're going to pull the dough from one side and stretch it. You're going to fold it back onto itself like you're folding it in half. Then you pick up another corner and do the same thing. You should stretch it and fold it about 4 to 6 times. 6 times if you can. The old stretch and fold method helps develop gluten and create elasticity in the dough. It also helps the dough hold more air, which results in a lighter crust, which is obviously way more fun to eat than a super dense crust. It should look really similar to this when you're done with the stretch and folds. Then you're going to recover the bowl and allow the dough to rest for another 3 hours at minimum. You can actually finish Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings, with 3 hours. So that would be my recommendation for you while you wait. Alternatively, you can make this cheese recipe, which is what is shown in the pizza in the video. It takes about 10 minutes. First, we're going to melt 3.5 tablespoons of coconut oil on medium-low heat. Then add 1 cup of soy milk. Also add 1 teaspoon of kappa carginin, 1 teaspoon of lactic acid, 1 teaspoon of fine sea salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of tapioca flour. You want to whisk everything together really well until you basically form an emulsion. You don't want the oil still sitting on the milk. I like to do a spoon test where I dip the spoon in there. Within 30 to 60 seconds, it should start solidifying. Then you just pour the liquid into a Tupperware dish or some silicone molds. Wait about 30 to 60 minutes and everything should set. Despite this lovely mozzarella brand you see here, I typically just dump this in a Tupperware bowl. Back to what we actually came for. Now it has been 3 hours minimum. This is what the dough should look like when you uncover it. If you've worked with seitan at all, this should be no surprise to you, but for those of you that haven't, since this pizza dough has more gluten in it, it tends to be more elastic, meaning that it'll stretch easily, but it'll also kind of bounce back to its original form. To combat that, I like to stretch it slowly, and what I'll do is I'll actually pull it across the bowl that it was resting in and just kind of let gravity pull it down to the size dough that I want. Since I'm using a 16-inch diameter pizza pan, it has to be pretty large, which means it needs to stretch a bunch. I highly recommend preheating your pan. I've had pretty bad luck with not preheating the pan. It tends to stick really bad, so preheat your pan for about 15 minutes in the oven. Seems like a good time to mention that we will be cooking this at 500 degrees Fahrenheit or about 260 Celsius. Once the dough is stretched across the pan, add whatever sauce you're going to use. I just used canned tomato sauce. Then add your cheese and or toppings. If you're using the cheese that we made in this video, it should look kind of like this. These are the size chunks I use. I actually used the full recipe for the cheese for this 16-inch diameter crust. Then you're going to toss it in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. I usually target 13 minutes for mine. As you can see here, because I preheated my pan, the pizza actually comes off easily. If you use the fresh mozzarella recipe that we made in this video, you're probably going to want to let the pizza rest for 5 to 10 minutes. This is a coconut oil-based cheese, and it does take a little bit to solidify after being out of your super hot oven. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more high-protein recipes that you can make at home, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any recipe recommendations, send them my way.